Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining this YouTube Live on a Monday afternoon. We got, what is it? A few weeks here. Not a few weeks. What is it? 10 days before the NFL draft. And I just did a Zoom minutes ago with Field Yates from ESPN. So check that out for the latest 49ers Talk podcast. It should be dropping either later tonight or early Tuesday morning. Jennifer and I will get together and we'll tape the podcast portion of it. There we go. For those of you just tuning in, let me know if you can hear this. I see some people jumping on there now. I don't think I have to do that anymore because I think I figured out what the issue was a couple weeks ago when I did it. It was just a stupid oversight. Yes, you can hear me. First off, let me tell you a little story about Field Yates, and it's kind of funny. This was back in July of 2019, and this is how. Well, 2019, we took a trip. My family and I took a trip to Maine. We flew into Boston, went to a game at Fenway, did the Freedom Trail, all that, and we were going up to Acadia National Park in Maine, kind of northern Maine or central Maine, wherever it is. I think northern Maine. And we stopped by at a Portland Sea Dogs baseball game. And Field Yates was having a discussion on fantasy football before the game. And this was like, kind of a promotional thing for the Portland Sea Dogs, a double-A team, I believe. And I didn't tell Field I was going to be there, but I was like, oh, this will be kind of funny. I found out that he was going to be there, but we were going to go to the game anyway. So just kind of just by chance. And we're walking along the street, and there's like a cyclone fence and then a little courtyard. So the paying people were just on the other side of the cyclone fence. And as I'm walking up with my family, I look over and I see Field, and he's looking in my direction, and he's talking about, giving fantasy football advice for that 2019 season. And then he looks over at me and he says, if any of you have any 49ers questions, ask Matt Mayoko right there. He's going to be coming in. Matt, come on in. And so anyway, it was shocking because like whenever I see people out of context, I could see my own brother in a place where I don't expect to see him. And I would go like, man, that guy looks familiar. Who is that? Oh, I guess he kind of looks like my brother. Field immediately was like, hey, there's Matt Mayoko. So anyway, I go in there, introduce him to my family after his thing is over. We're talking to people, and this lady comes up to me and she says, it is so nice of you to be here for your nephew. And I was like, my nephew? And it took me a second and it dawned on me. She thought Field said, there's Matt, my uncle. So anyway, ever since then, so that was what, darn near 6 years ago. Ever since then, anytime Field and I see each other, we refer to each other as uncle and nephew. Okay, so there's one thing that Field said during our talk, because I asked the question. We talked about defensive line, both interior and edge rusher. We talked about offensive line, possibilities there at number 11, possibilities for later in the draft that could fit what the 49ers are trying to do or what they like to do offensively, offensive linemen that can move, who are good in space, who are good in that outside zone scheme. The one position where not a whole lot of people are talking about it. I don't know, too many people are talking about it, but I think it warrants discussion. And it's not a first round draft pick. It's probably not a second round draft pick, but maybe when you're talking about rounds 3 and 4, and the 49ers do have a lot of picks in that area. So it's, anywhere from, let's say, 75 Heck, 75 to 160. Nickelback. Yeah, I know there are some people in mock drafts say, oh, 49ers could take Jade Barron from Texas at number 11. They could take Will Johnson at number 11. Personally, I don't think so. Could be wrong. I'll always say that. Could be wrong. I don't know for sure. But I think Renardo Green is a good cornerback, a starting caliber cornerback. I think that Diamador Lenore certainly is a starting caliber cornerback, and he's also very good playing the nickel. But there's value to be had by taking a nickel back in those middle rounds. And that was a question I had of Field on this latest 49ers Talk podcast. Who are the nickelbacks that the 49ers could get anywhere in that range of, let's just say, 75 to 160? And the first guy that he mentioned is the one that probably interests me the most, and that's Quincy Riley from Louisville. And this is a guy that has really good ball skills. He's also a punt returner, by the way. He played 3 years at Middle Tennessee State, finished off at Louisville, and he looks like a guy that would interest the 49ers, and that maybe is reinforced by the fact that he came in on one of those visits. Teams are allowed to bring in 30 draft eligible prospects from outside the area. And Quincy Riley is one of those guys that the 49ers brought in for a visit. So keep an eye on Quincy Riley from Louisville, somebody who I do think the 49ers have a need there at the nickelback position. And they have some answers at cornerback. If they were to move like they have in the past, Diamador Lenore inside in nickel situations, then they need to find an outside corner to replace him. They've tried Ambry Thomas a couple of years ago. That just did not work out at all. Last year, Isaac Yadam, Rock Yassin, both of those guys, neither one of them really worked out all that well. And so Quincy Riley, somebody to keep an eye on. Another guy that maybe is later, but the one thing I keep going back to with the 49ers defensive backfield is they were the only team in the NFL in 2023 that had more interceptions than touchdown passes allowed. Let that sink in. In 2023, more interceptions than touchdown passes allowed. And that's nothing to bark at, folks. That's a pretty impressive stat there. Last year, their interceptions just fell off a cliff. They weren't able to generate any kind of takeaways with their pass defense. So one guy that, and I don't know where he's going to go. I was looking at him on the consensus big board, and he's 219. So I don't know if he's going to last that long. But Mello Dotson from Kansas, 4 pick sixes in the past 2 years, 9 interceptions total in the past 2 years. He would be somebody that I think could help the 49ers from a playmaking standpoint from that nickel back position. So those are some ideas of some guys who could be around. Caleb Ransaw from Tulane by way of Troy is another one that Field mentioned, as well as Jacob Parrish from Kansas State. How Field described Jacob Parrish is a tough guy, feisty, not crazy ball production. However, he did have 4 interceptions as a sophomore in 2023. So let me know what you think there as far as the nickelback position being a spot where the 49ers should address. I think they should address it. I thought they had some opportunities last year. They didn't. But this year, add that to the list of many positions. I think we can all agree defensive tackle, if we're just looking at need, defensive tackle is the one spot that probably ranks higher than any other position for the 49ers on that list of needs. They haven't done anything to fill that in free agency. I'm sure after the draft, they'll kind of reassess and see if there are any veterans out there, rotational players that they can get. But when you think about it right now, the defensive tackles the 49ers have are Jordan Elliott, Kevin Givens, Evan Anderson, Kalia Davis. So they do need more players there. Mason Graham will probably already be taken. Looking for him in that 4 to 6 or 7 range. A guy that he isn't super impressive when you look at him, but it made a lot of plays and really a good technician. Very kind of country strong, I guess you could say, even though he's not a country guy, he's a Southern California guy, but at Michigan made a lot of plays for them. And then, I don't know who that next defensive tackle is going to be. In my last mock draft, I had the 49ers taking Walter Nolan at number 11. And a lot of that had to do, or almost all of that had to do with just his ability to rush the passer from the inside. Very twitchy, athletic, maybe the ability to run down a quarterback, these new age quarterbacks who are so effective, kind of on the move a little bit. But I think when you're looking at defensive tackle, taking a defensive tackle in the first round, I think you want that person to be really good as a pass rusher. And so that's why I had Walter Nolan up there. Derek Harmon is another one of those guys. As far as Kenneth Grant, more of a nose tackle, 330 pounds. So I don't know that 11 is the spot for him, thinking more later in the first round, because I'm not sure that at the NFL level, the pass rush skills will be there. Some of the other guys to keep an eye on, and this is when you look at where the 49ers are, they draft 11, they draft 43, and they draft 75. As far as the defensive tackles go, guys that the 49ers have shown interest in the pre-draft process is Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. Again, kind of a bigger guy, 330 pounds, not necessarily what the 49ers have looked for in the past from their defensive tackles or the defensive lineman period. They seem to like guys more in that, 295 to 310 range. And that's where Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee would check in, 6'1", 303, maybe a little bit more in that mold. And he's somebody that 49ers could conceivably pick up in the third round of this draft. Okay, I see something popping up here. This is from Silent. They really serious about their views on the O-line. Well, if your view is, yeah, and a lot of teams feel that way. I mean, look at the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you're referring to the view on the O-line is, they did take Mike McGlinchey there at number 9 overall 5 years ago. And I tend to agree when you look at the way Chris Furster explained it was, unless there's an offensive lineman that you absolutely love, a guy like Trent Williams who checks all the boxes and can be a difference maker. If that's the case, absolutely take the offensive lineman. But playmakers are playmakers. And if you have an opportunity to get a playmaker, you more than likely lean in that direction. Now, in this draft, who are the 49ers options at number 11 overall? Armand Mimbu, will he be there? I doubt it. Will Campbell from LSU, will he be there? I doubt it. And then who is it after that? Is it Kelvin Banks at number 11? Is that the guy that you'd rather have over in this draft, a defensive lineman, an edge rusher, a guy who can help you out on that side of the ball. The one playmaker that I could see them taking at 11, although it's a little bit more difficult now, I think, to make that argument. Because when I first did these mock drafts or first started doing them, my thinking was that Kyle Juszczyk would not be back, and I didn't know that the 49ers would go out and pay decent money for a number 2 tight end who is a blocking specialist. So they got Luke Farrell. Um, Kyle Juszczyk is back. My thought process or my thinking was the 49ers at some point, it would be life after Juszczyk. They've been a halfback, fullback team and base downs. Some teams have morphed more into one back and 2 tight ends. And Tyler Warren's the kind of guy that could create mismatches all over the field. And just having him out there, if defenses go light for coverage, 49ers can run the ball because they would have a size advantage. If teams go big to stop the run, then with Kittle and Tyler Warren, you have that kind of mismatch with linebackers being asked to cover one of those guys. So there's always going to be a mismatch. Now with Luke Farrell on the team, Kyle Juszczyk back for perhaps 2 seasons. I don't know that that makes as much sense, but I do think that it would still create an opportunity for the 49ers to create mismatches with their offense and, take their offense in a different direction and really force teams to counteract that and decide and make some difficult decisions on how they want to defend them. So are the 49ers serious about their philosophy on offensive linemen? Yes, absolutely. And a lot of teams feel that way. So I don't think that's anything unique. You want your number 11 overall pick to be a difference maker. I don't think Mike McGlinchey was a difference maker for the 49ers. And so that's what you're getting. Any offensive lineman you're going to take, unless it's like the best guy in the draft, they're going to be growing pains. And a lot of times, if you have a rookie, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, if you have a rookie that you put into the starting lineup on the offensive line, especially at the tackle position, that player is often more of a liability early in his career than a positive. And so, again, I don't disagree with that philosophy that Chris Furster laid out there at all. I mean, I just think back to, the Bill Walsh days of, I'm sure he thought the same thing. Go with the playmaker. Go with the defensive player, a guy who can change the game either way. And typically speaking, yes, you do have to have a good offensive line, but it's just I don't buy it that you just take an offensive lineman to take an offensive lineman. All right. So thank you, Silent, for that question, for that comment. I'm just going to go up to the top here, unless we got some things that light up here. Let's see here. Thanks to everybody for checking in. Harmon or Green should be the first pick. Perhaps. I don't know if there's another question about this, but check out that podcast when it goes available. But yeah, Mike Green seems to be a very skilled pass rusher, played at a little bit lower level at Marshall, but against top flight competition, also excelled. Harmon is kind of in that same mold as Walter Nolan. And so I'll tell you about my exercise was that because I think defensive tackle is the most glaring weakness for the 49ers, I looked at which defensive tackle would fit right there. And the 2 guys that came to mind were Nolan and Harmon. So I went with Nolan. But Harmon is, I don't think for everything I hear from basically like, I don't know what the number would be, but let's just say 7 or 8 or 9 to 25. There's a very wide range there of where guys could be selected, and it would make sense for a player to go anywhere in that range. And I would say Nolan, Harmon, Green, Stewart, Michael Williams, um, Jalen Walker. A lot of those guys are seen as top 10 picks, but wouldn't be shocking, I don't think, too much anyway, to see any one of those players land anywhere from 7, 6, 7, 8 to the early 20s. All right, just throwing on my Uncle Matt. That's right. Um, Been hearing nonsense about them trading Kittle instead of paying an extension. Please put this gibberish to bed. I haven't heard that. Always a good idea if um, to to shut off the stuff where people are just tossing stuff out there to get conversation going. Can you explain how a shutdown cornerback can improve the D line and linebacker groups? Um, well, yeah, I mean, it works both ways quite clearly. I would say a good pass rush has more of an impact on the secondary than vice versa, but it definitely does work both ways in the sense that a good pass rush forces the quarterback to get rid of the ball quickly. And a lot of times, this stuff is just game plan related when teams feel like they might be at a disadvantage as far as being able to block the opposition in their game plan. They'll put a lot of three-step drops and get the ball out quickly. And so that's kind of the fear of the pass rush. And so, therefore, the corners know that they can jump routes. They know that that clock in their head means that the quarterback's going to be getting rid of the ball quickly. The other part of it is, we've all heard the term coverage sacks. Whenever the corners are playing tight man coverage or whatever, tight zone coverage too, it just forces the quarterback to hold the ball longer. So a good cornerback, good coverage can help the pass rush by giving them the time to get there. And then a good pass rush can help the cornerback knowing that um, the quarterback won't have time to deliver the ball down the field or hold the ball. So it does definitely does work hand in hand. Um, Will Johnson at 11. The only thing about Will Johnson um, is he has had a difficult time staying healthy through this pre-draft process and his final year at Michigan. I don't see that as being a need. I talked a lot about the nickelback position. I see that being a need, but what's the thinking? Is Will Johnson a starter year one? Is he clearly better than Renardo Green, who now has 17 games under his belt as an NFL player and I thought played pretty well as a rookie. Diamador Lenore, of course, starts on the outside, moves into nickelback. So, I mean, I could see it. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I don't know that if that's the right play, getting a cornerback there. But if the 49ers have him rated as the top guy on their board when it's time to choose, then that's the guy. I'm not even sure that Will Johnson is going to be the number one cornerback off the board, though. Janae Barron from Texas might very well be that guy. What do you think about the pending extension for Brock Purdy? Has an impact on what the 49ers do in the draft? I think it has zero impact on what the 49ers do in the draft. No, I mean their positional needs and how they're trying to build the roster. They have their quarterback. I don't think that they would take and maybe this isn't the question, but they're not going to take a quarterback, in the first 5 or 6 rounds of this draft, and probably won't take one. Period. Sounds like they feel like they have their three quarterbacks with Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, and Tanner Mordecai. So, no, I don't think. I don't think they're. I don't see that having any impact on what the 49ers do. Who do you prefer between Grant and Nolan? I would go with Nolan because of the pass rush ability. And And I think, like I'm just trying to think about this. 49ers typically haven't had these 330-pound defensive tackles. Um, they usually have the smaller. They usually, well, that's the right term. They have those guys in the 305, 310 range. So I would think Nolan. Um, let me just look at Grant's. I just don't think of Kenneth Grant as a guy who is a great pass rusher. And I think in today's NFL, um, if you're going to take a defensive lineman early in this draft, early, in the first round or top half of the first round, he can't be a a two down player. I think you need him out there in those money downs, the crucial third downs. And so Kenneth Grant in 41 games at Michigan had 6.5 sacks, and he also had the benefit of lining up aside Mason Graham. So I don't think I wouldn't take Kenneth Grant there. Hey, I see somebody. This is Holland Tracy. Thank you, Holland. Very nice of you. Um, Saints are going to need a quarterback. What blue chip player do you suspect may fall? Well, here's a little nugget for you, Holland. Is um, when I was at the NFL annual meeting, the one buzzy thing I heard, and this is the way it was told to me, and this is by someone, I'm not going to say who, but someone whose name in the NFL. This person said that he believes that there are teams out there who have Jackson Dart ranked ahead of Shador Sanders. So he didn't make any prediction, who's going to go first after, Cam Ward goes number one, right? Well, with Derek Carr's injury casting questions about whether he's even going to be available to play this season, you would think the Saints at number 9 are going to want to get into the mix and get a quarterback. And that would be a spot right there at number 9 for Sanders. Now, if there's competition, you got Cleveland could take a quarterback. Everybody seems to be thinking that's going to be Travis Hunter. 3, the Giants could take a quarterback, but everybody's thinking there is probably Abdul Carter. And then whichever teams need quarterbacks after that, Pittsburgh in the low 20s. I mentioned the Saints. So 2 quarterbacks go in the top 10, and that's good news for the 49ers. If 3 quarterbacks go, that's really good news. The question is, to your point, Tyler Warren or Will Campbell, it could go either way. Um, I, I think that if the 49ers take Tyler Warren at number 11, there will be a lot of people who love it. There are be a lot of people who say they didn't address their biggest need. The question then becomes, can you still get those other positions later? And yes, absolutely. The 49ers could get, offensive linemen later. They could get defensive linemen later, and they're going to have plenty of opportunities to connect in this draft with 4 picks in the top 100, another 4 picks in the next 60. So 8 picks in the top 160 of this draft. So Campbell is a guy that ultra productive, very good player, fared very well against all the top SEC pass rushers. So, would the 49ers take him at number 11? I would think they would. And that goes back to the previous question that was from Silent. Is Will Campbell good enough that 49ers would take him at 11, even though he's an offensive lineman? Is Calvin Banks that good? I don't know. That's where you start asking those questions. But this question from Holland Tracy, What blue chip player do you suspect will fall? For a while, I thought Mason Graham could fall, but man, it sounds like people just the more you watch him and the teams that have met with him, there seems to be a lot of intrigue there with Mason Graham. Um, I would say that are Graham, Campbell, and Warren all going to go in the top 10? Perhaps not. I do think Membu goes before Campbell, so I would think that Campbell would have maybe that would be the best shot because there will be some teams that just don't want him because of the arm length. If you're going to take an offensive tackle that high in the draft, he has to check all the boxes. And Will Campbell checks the vast majority of those boxes except for the arm length. And yes, he measured in 32 and 5/8 inches at the combine, 33 inches at his pro day, and 33 is seen as kind of the bottom line of offensive tackles. There might be some teams that view him as a guard, but would you take a guard at number 10? You might. So, um, so the player, yeah, I'd say Campbell probably is the player that could fall to the 49ers at 11. All right, what else do we have here? I'm going back up to the top. Let's see here. Um, let's see. Dylan Fairchild. I don't know much about Dylan Fairchild, Jeff. There are a lot of linemen kind of fit. The guy that Ratliff, I think, was the guy, or Ratledge is the guy that I kind of looked at there. I mean, I would go, that's Georgia, right? Yeah. So I'd even go Xavier Truss, maybe as a tackle in the fifth or sixth rounds. Harmon. Yeah. So Harmon is a guy that, um, Derek Harmon is a guy that is twitchy and good pass rusher. Uh, he could fit the bill there. Draft outside corner and keep Luter in the slot. I don't. Well, the question is, they could draft an outside corner and keep Luter in the slot. Well, Luter doesn't. Luter never played nickelback. That was Diamador Lenore, and so I don't think you would draft. I mean, if they drafted an outside corner, then what do they do with Renardo Green? Yeah, you need backups clearly, but I would be at this point, I'd be very surprised if the starting cornerbacks for the 49ers to open this coming season are not Diamador Lenore and Renardo Green. All right. Oh, I'm just seeing that pop up again. Silent again. Thank you for that. Let's see. Purdy's going to have a short career. Why is that? Can't be the only ones who envious Hurd from clean pocket. Oh, okay. Silent says, can't be the only one who's envious about Hurd having all day to throw from a clean pocket. I've said it many times. There are a couple of teams that have invested in their offensive line, and it proved beneficial. But when you look at NFL offensive lines, I would say 49ers are a little bit better than middle of the pack. Their offensive line was good enough to take the lead in the Super Bowl fourth quarter twice and once in overtime, and they lost that game. But nobody was complaining about the Kansas City Chiefs and their offensive line. And I think the 49ers offensive line is better than the Kansas City Chiefs. But it works there's more than one way to build a roster. No question about it. And, going to the NFC Championship game 4 times in 5 years, and the 49ers having what was generally considered one of the best rosters in the NFL, then, they do something well in the draft too. Has it been good enough for them to win that final game? No, but I can't say that. I don't know. I think they have won a lot of games, and we'll see how they do this year. But their philosophy, it's kind of tough to poke holes in. I guess the one thing I would say is that they've let their defensive line kind of get away from them a little bit here over the last few years. Uh, by off the defensive line, I would put over offensive line. Um, and a dominant. I would rather have a team with a dominant defensive line than a team with a dominant offensive line when you've used the same draft capital at both of those spots, if that makes any sense at all. What do we got here? Somebody, hit the like button. There we go. How many likes do we have? 24. Let's see if we can get 25. Everybody, okay, let's do this. 3, 2, 1, and everybody hit the like button and see if we can get uh, more than 25 now. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, like. Yay, look at that. Thank you. Wow, that's pretty cool. Okay, so here we go. More. Uh, Usually drafts don't pay off for 2 or 3 years. Niners drafted horribly for 3 years now. They're going to suffer. I thought last year's draft was pretty good. Let me just go through. Well, and this is not certainly not an excuse because they made their own bed. But remember, they went 2 years there without a first round draft pick. Hey, it's East Coast podcast. Today's your birthday. Happy birthday, East Coast. Mike Green, aka Reuben Foster 2.0. Yeah, I mean that's one thing when I'm with Mike Green at the combine, I hear those questions, and you learn all that stuff about getting suspended from the UVA football team. So you have to wonder, should we trade up for Membo? No. The 49ers need draft picks, and they don't want to be giving up draft capital to go up and get one player. Michael Williams is a cleaner, safer pick over Green. Jahad Campbell would be my guy. That's not me speaking. That's GC. Campbell with the labrum injury and the surgery. I just don't. I don't think at 11. Speaking of, can you see using more coverage schemes, perhaps more press? It depends on who they have. I mean, they've been a very, cover 3 base team, but that, you need the players, you need that good D line rotation to get in there. Can't take any chances on drafting injured players. Yeah, I mean, you have to be calculated when you do that. So Campbell is one of those guys. Certainly Josh Simmons is one of those guys. Will Johnson, one of those guys who have had a difficult time staying healthy. Harmon is a better pass rusher than Nolan. Nolan has better get up, but okay. That's always happens. Some crazy. This is Holland Tracy. Always happens. Some crazy change up in the beginning of the draft path. It's hard to predict. Yeah, absolutely. That's why. Yeah, the first 10 picks are going to be super interesting, and then I don't even know, how the 49ers are going to, what's their move. Obviously, when they have as many picks as they do and as many needs as they do, it opens things up because it doesn't have to be for need. They can definitely go with their board. And if the best player is, I mean, you can almost name the position. If the best player on their board is an offensive lineman, sure as heck, take that guy. If the best player on their board is a defensive end, take him. Defensive tackle, take him. Cornerback, what the heck, take him. If the best player on their board by a margin is that tight end from Penn State, take him. Linebacker, take him. Whoever that's kind of the blessing and the curse of the 2025 NFL draft for the 49ers is they have so many needs. Um, I in an impact position, best player, take them, and then you have so many other spots in this draft. Like I mentioned, 8 in the top 160 that you can check off, other boxes to fill up your roster. Um, what do we got here? Let's see. Is the difference from Warren to Fannin bigger than Mike Green to Ezaruko? As a Ezaraku, I'm sorry, right? Ezaraku. That's Donovan Ezaraku, the edge rusher from Boston College. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. Like, do you take, you know, could you take defensive line at 11, come back and take offensive line at 43, or even wait until the third round and get a Charles Grant or something like that? I'm of the opinion that if the 49ers do not take an offensive lineman at 11, then the offensive lineman that they'll be drafting later is going to be more of a swing tackle type, not a year one starter. It'll be a Jalen Moore type. I mean, think about Jalen Moore. Was he a fifth round draft pick 4 years ago? Barely played, got on the field when Trent Williams was injured, swing tackle, and he parlays that into $15 million a year. All right. Trade back, please. Got to get somebody, got to have somebody who's likes a player well enough to trade up in order to trade back. I think there's probably going to be, 7, 8 teams who want to trade back, but you need somebody, generally a quarterback. That's why I mentioned the Jackson Dart stuff earlier, is that, if a team, what do I have, a mosquito or something? There's a team that wants to get up there for Sanders, get up there for Dart. That's a possibility. So we shall see. I would think the 49ers would like to trade back, but easier said than done. What's going on, Matt? Hey, what's happening? Joshua, love the channel. I appreciate that very much. Jalen Walker is a guy. Could be valuable as edge and a stack linebacker. Yes, I did have, I've done, 5 mock drafts now. My goal was to give the 49ers a different player in each one of my mock drafts. The first guy I had them taken was Shamar Stewart. I might have been ahead of my time on that one. I knew that he would test out well in the combine. So much untapped potential there, and kind of a freaky, big, athletic guy. So Shamar Stewart's my first guy. Who knows? My last mock draft, I might go back to him at number 11. I don't know. See how it plays out. But my first guy was Shamar Stewart. Second one was Tyler Warren. Third one was Armand Mimbu. Fourth one was Jalen Walker. And then the last one I did was Walter Nolan. So I want to hear what you guys have to say. Let's see it in the comments section. Who do you think? Should we do it both ways? Who do you think they should pick? Now, this is taking into consideration who you think is going to be the top 10 selections. So do this way. Your pick is this guy. Who you think they'll pick is this guy. So leave it in the comments section. Just one line. Who you think they should pick, who will be there, right? And then who you think the team will pick. And in some cases, it might be both, right? It might be the guy you want is also the guy you think the 49ers will select. All right, where are we going here? I will not be live on draft night, I don't think, because I'll be down in Santa Clara in my cubicle. It'd probably be kind of annoying for me to do that. So probably not on draft night unless I do it late or maybe early the next day. Maybe I'll do it before the draft starts, but I haven't really thought that far ahead. Let's see here. When are you going on the Rich Eisen show again? I don't know. Pretty much whenever they ask me, I'll do it. Hope Shanny doesn't make the picks. Let the scouts advise and do their job. Yeah, you know what? I don't know where this started. John Lynch is the general manager, and he has contractual say on the draft. Now, obviously, if the 49ers are looking to draft a quarterback, it's going to be Kyle Shanahan. Wide receiver is going to be Kyle Shanahan. But John Lynch is the one who runs the draft. He's the one who puts together, the scouting department and all that. Does John Lynch consult? Absolutely. He talks to position coaches, discusses it with Kyle Shanahan and all that. But Shanahan doesn't even go to the scouting combine. So I don't know. I got like some really nasty comments in the last one. Who was it? Like Mills Financial Group or somebody was just crushing me, like calling me the worst reporter ever, and I'm stupid and all this. But Kyle Shanahan does not run the draft. He is not at the big board saying, "Hey, let's do this." That is John Lynch. However, he is the head coach, so of course he has his say in the matter. But it's typically, you know, it's high in the draft, which guys